To learn a bit more about why RDM was chosen as a methodology for this study, we've asked one of the co-authors, Dr. Nidhi Kalra, to talk to us about this work. Dr. Kalra was a senior information scientist at the RAND Corporation during the time of this study, and she is now a senior technical policy advisor for the U.S. Senator Kamala Harris. Dr. Kalra, thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts about your recent use of robust decision-making. To begin, can you talk briefly to our students about what policy debate this work on autonomous vehicles was trying to inform?
Sure, I'd be happy to. There's a real debate about what level of safety needs to be achieved before we allow autonomous vehicles on our roads for public use. Should we wait for them to be nearly perfect, or do they just have to be better than human drivers, or somewhere in between? And this study tries to address that question by modeling the consequences in terms of the human life lost based on different choices, near-term choices we might make now about what that threshold of safety needs to be.
Well, that's great. So why did you choose to use robust decision-making?
The question we're trying to answer is riddled with deep uncertainties. Starting with how safe are autonomous vehicles right now, we're not even sure. How safe could they become eventually? How quickly will they get there? How fast will the uptake be? Almost everything about autonomous vehicle adoption, use, and performance is deeply uncertain, and so it seems clear that our traditional methods of analysis wouldn't work, whereas a robust decision-making approach that says, how safe would they have to be? How quickly would they have to be adopted in order for one choice to be better than the other? Framing it that way allows us to use robust decision-making to address the question in a totally different way, and it's the right way to address a deeply uncertain problem like this.
All right, and can you say a bit more about what the key findings were?
Yeah, our results showed that essentially it's almost impossible to imagine a circumstance in which waiting for the technology to get better makes sense. Rather, the research shows that if you introduce the technology when it's just better than the average human driver, we start saving lives. Earlier, faster, the technology can get better. And so under almost any imaginable set of conditions, the life saving is better from being more aggressive adopters rather than later adopters. Now, I have to caution that and say this doesn't take into account sort of social phenomena or human reactions to risk aversion. It sort of treats the problem as though we're all utilitarians, which we're not. So people don't necessarily react rationally to different kinds of risk. And so what may be mathematically a robust decision may, in our very complex world that reacts emotionally to things, be very different. And so this is one way of looking at the problem, but we certainly don't view it as the final word.
Very interesting. And lastly, can you tell us a little bit about how this has informed or helped shape the policy debate around autonomous vehicles, and in what way do you think RDM helped to make that impact?
This work showed, I think for the first time, some of the mathematical implications of policy choices in autonomous vehicle policy that had a rigorous treatment of uncertainty, that fully acknowledged that we don't just have one scenario or two scenarios, but that the whole thing is just very complex, very uncertain, and yet we can understand and make policy inferences despite this uncertainty. So I think it showed both a policy outcome and a way of thinking about the policy problem itself. And, we can see as a result of that ways in which national organizations are thinking about how we understand the risk associated with this technology and how we might seek to manage the risk even if we can't quantify it. So the effects are, I think, widespread. The impact has been, it's made an impact in a lot of different ways.